Welcome everyone to the light of Zion. The light of Zion is our God's word. Yahuwah's word is a lamp for our feet and a light for the road that we travel. Shine your light, O Yahuwah. Let it lead us to your holy mountains. Shine your light, O Yahuwah. Let it lead us back to Zion. Shine your light and let it guide us on our journey back to you. Shine your light, for it is good for me. And with that, I say, welcome to the light of Zion. Hello, and welcome again to another presentation coming from the light of Zion. I'm glad that you are joining me again. And I know the presentations from this channel has been of interest to you. For the word of our God, the light of Zion, will keep shining light to show to us what our God is doing and what our God wants done and what our God wants accomplished at the end. So as you keep paying attention, it's my hope and my wish that you'll be blessed. It's my desire that you that is paying attention will be among those that will at the end stand in Mount Zion and say, this is our God, and this is the God of our salvation. So that is my wish for you. Anybody that is telling you that they are the one that can provide you with salvation is a lie. I can only tell you the truth of what is written. But it is you that will have to work out your salvation with your God. Yes, at the end, it is those that return to seeking, those that knew their God are the ones that will stand triumphantly at the end. So today I'm coming to you with another eye-opening presentation. And this one is titled, Crowds. Crowds are in the valley of the decision. Yes, crowds and crowds are in the valley of decision. So follow me as we consider what is written in the book of Joel, chapter 3, verse 14 to 16. There it is written, it says, crowds are in the valley of the decision, for the day of Yahuwah is near in the valley of the decision. So the sun and the moon will become dark, and the stars will lose their brightness. And Yahuwah will roar out of Zion, and out of Jerusalem he will raise his voice, and heaven and earth will rock. But Yahuwah will be a refuge for his people, a fortress for the people of Israel. So yes, lots of people are in this valley of decision, waiting for Yahuwah's judgment's decision to be executed. Lots of people are in this valley waiting for Yahuwah's judgment decisions to be executed. So follow along as we break this down. So what is this valley where billions of people are in waiting for their judgment? What is this valley where billions of people are in waiting for their judgment? Well, the book of Joel chapter 3 verse 9 to 12, there it is written, so proclaim this among the nations, prepare for war, stir up mighty men, say let all the soldiers draw near, let them advance, say beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning shears into spears. So let the weak say, I am powerful. Say, come and help. All you surrounding nations assemble together to that place. O Yahuwah, bring down your powerful ones. Say, let the nations be aroused and come to the valley of Jehoshaphat. So for there I will sit in order to judge all the surrounding nations. So yes, this valley among these nations, this valley is among these nations where Israel have gone, where Israel were scattered. That is where the decision is being made as to who will live and who will be exterminated at the appointed time for the final judgments. Yes, it is among these nations where Israel have gone, that is the valley, where billions and millions of people are waiting in the valley of decision for the judgment to be executed. It is among these nations where Israel have gone. So Israel was scattered to bear punishment for our error. And our error is the breaking of the covenant or the agreement that our ancestors made with our God. So because of that, Israel was scattered among the nations to bear punishment for our error. But at the end of our punishment, Yahuwah will execute his foretold final judgment on all humans. Yes, at the end of our punishment time, Yahuwah will execute final judgment upon all humans. And that is why millions, crowds and crowds are in this valley of decision, waiting for this judgment to be executed or be carried out on all flesh. So, what is this valley where billions of people are waiting for their judgment? Notice what is written in the book of Zephaniah chapter 1, verse 14 to 18. There it is written, the great day of Yahuwah is near. It is near, and it is approaching very quickly. So the sound of the day of Yahuwah is bitter. There a warrior cries out. So that day is a day of fury, a day of distress and anguish, a day of storm and desolation, a day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and thick gloom, a day of the horns and the battle cry against the fortified cities and against the high corner towers. I will cause distress to mankind, and they will walk like blind men, because it is against Yahuwah they have sinned. Their blood will be poured out like dust, and their flesh like the dung. So neither their silver nor their gold will be able to save them in the day of Yahuwah's fury. For by the fire of his zeal the whole earth will be consumed, because he will make an extermination, indeed a terrible one, of all the inhabitants of the earth. So yes, billions and billions of people are in this valley among the nations, waiting for this extermination to be carried out. Yes, waiting for this judgment to be executed. That is why Joel wrote that crowds and crowds are in the valley of the decision. Yahuwah said he's going to do what? Cause mankind to walk like blind men, because it is against Yahuwah they have sinned. Therefore their blood will be poured out like the dust, and their flesh like the dung. That is going to be a terrible day of judgment on mankind that is coming, that will be executed. And like Zephaniah said, that great day is near, very, very near. It is even closer than it was before when Zephaniah wrote this. That day is even closer if you understand the timetable of God. That day is approaching. So it's going to be a terrible day. According to Isaiah chapter 34, verse 2 and 3, there is written, say, for Yahuwah's indignation is against all the nations. So Yahuwah's anger or his indignation is against all the nations. You name them: China, America, Russia, Germany, England, Africa, all the nations. Yahuwah's anger is against all the nations. He will be against all the nations. And his wrath is against all their army. He said he will devote them to destruction. So he will give them to the slaughter. Their slain will be thrown out, and the stench of their carcasses will ascend. The mountains will melt because of their blood. So Yahuwah's anger is against all the nations, and that's why crowds and crowds of people are in this valley of decision, waiting for this judgment to be executed. So it is among these nations where Israel have gone to self-punishment, that is the valley where Yahuwah will execute his final judgment on all humans. Yes, among these nations is where he will execute his final judgment on all humans. So, what are Yahuwah's foretold final decisions of his judgment? What are Yahuwah's foretold final decisions of his judgment, of the things that must be carried out? What are they? Well, follow along as I read the book of Genesis chapter 3 verse 15, there it is written, "And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He will crush your head, and you will strike him in the heel." So yes, Yahuwah has foretold his decisions concerning the children that the devil will produce on earth, and the children that he himself will produce, Yahuwah himself will produce on the earth. His decision is that the children raised by God will crush the head of the children raised by the serpent, the devil, on earth. Yahuwah raised up the nation of Israel as his portion and his inheritance. And the serpent, the devil, raised up the nations as his children that he has been using to bruise the heel of the children of God, Israel. Notice what is written in the book of Jeremiah chapter 46 verse 23. There it is written, "So do not be afraid, my servant Jacob," that is Israel, declares Yahuwah, "for I am with you. Say, I will make an extermination among all the nations where I disperse you. But you I will not exterminate. Say, I will discipline you to the proper degree, but I will by no means leave you unpunished." So Yahuwah said that concerning his people, his portion, his inheritance, Israel, he said we should not be afraid. So we should not be afraid. He said he will make an extermination among all the nations where we have been dispersed. But us, he will not completely what? Exterminate. But he will discipline us to the proper degree. But among the nations, he's going to make an extermination of them. So, yes, Yahuwah has foretold the final decision, and that is to make an extermination among all the nations where his chosen people were scattered. And Israel, we are scattered on almost all the four corners of the earth. Yes, we are scattered in all the four corners of the earth. So therefore, Yahuwah is going to make extermination in all the four corners of the earth. And that's why crowds and crowds, or billions and billions of people are lying in the valley of this decision, waiting to be executed, waiting to be exterminated at the appointed time. Yes, these are Yahuwah's foretold final decisions that must be carried out at the appointed time. And Zephaniah said that this great day is coming and is approaching very quickly. Yahuwah has also foretold and forewarned the peoples of the nations that he will take vengeance on the nations for whatever they do to his chosen nation and inheritance, Israel. He said that he will make an atonement for the land of his people. So he has forewarned the nations that he is going to take vengeance on them for whatever they have done to his people, his inheritance, Israel. In the book of Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 40 to 43, there it is written, Excuse me. I raise my hand to the heaven, and I swear, as surely as I live, if I sharpen my flashing sword and prepare my hands for judgment, I will repay vengeance on my adversaries and bring retribution to those who hate me. I will make my arrow drawn with blood, and my sword will eat flesh, with the blood of the slain and the captives, with the hairs of the leaders of the enemy. So be glad, you nations, with his people, for he will avenge the blood of his servants, and he will repay vengeance on his adversaries, and he will make an atonement for the land of his people. So through Moses, Yahuwah has already forewarned the nation and has foretold, because he said he raised his hand and he swore that as long as he is alive, he is going to do what? Take this vengeance on the nations for what they have done to his people, for what they have done to his servants. And he will make an atonement for the land of his people. So Yahuwah said he will do this. And that is why millions and millions of people are in the valley of this decision, waiting to be what? Exterminated at the appointed time. Because Yahuwah said he swore that he will carry out this vengeance, this final judgment on all nations, on all humans. So what are Yahuwah's foretold final decisions of judgment? Concerning the promised land for Abraham's chosen descendant Israel, Yahuwah has foretold that Israel's descendants will return and inherit the land for the fourth time, or for the fourth generation. So he has foretold that Israel's descendants will return back to this promised land and will inherit it for the fourth time, or for the fourth generation. So in the book of Genesis chapter 15, verse 13 to 16, there is written, Then he said to Abram, Say, know for certain that your offspring will be foreigners in a land not theirs, and that the people there will enslave them and afflict them for 400 years. But I will judge the nation they will serve, and after that they will go out with many goods. As for you, you will go to your forefathers in peace. So you will be buried at a good old age. But they will return here in the fourth generation, or in the fourth time, for the fourth time, because the era of the Amorite has not yet reached its full measure. So God foretold that his chosen descendant of Abraham, Israel, will return back to the promised land for their fourth generation in this promised land, and they will inherit the land then forever. So these are Yahuwah's foretold final decisions of his judgment, and these judgments must be carried out. So crowds and crowds are billions and billions of people that are waiting to be exterminated. Yes, crowds and crowds of billions and billions of people waiting to be exterminated among these nations. Why? Well, because of this final judgment decision, billions of people are in the valley, that is among the nations, waiting to be exterminated at the appointed time. According to what is written in the book of Joel chapter 3 verse 2, there is written, I will also gather together all the nations and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat, that is the valley of judgment. And I will enter into judgment with them there in behalf of my people and my inheritance Israel. For they scattered them among the nations, and they divided up my land among themselves. So God said, for the reason that the nations scattered Israel among the nations, and they have divided up the land of his people among themselves. For this reason, he's going to gather all the nations and bring them down to this valley of judgment in order to exterminate them. Yes, in order to exterminate them. That is why crowds of people of the nations and crowds of the people of Israel also are waiting for this foretold extermination. Yes, the nations will be exterminated according to what our God foretold. The nations will be exterminated, and crowds of billions and billions of them are waiting for this final judgment to be executed. Also included will be crowds of the people of Israel will be also exterminated. Why? Notice what is written. What is revealed in the book of Isaiah chapter 10 verse 21 to 23. There is written, only a remnant will return, a remnant of Jacob to the mighty God. For though your people, O Israel, are as the grain of the sand of the sea, only a remnant of them will return. An extermination has been decided on, and justice will engulf them. Yes, the extermination decided on by the sovereign Lord Yahuwah of armies will be carried out in the entire land. So yes, only a few remnant of the people of Israel will return back for the fourth generation of Israel in the promised land. Only a few remnants will return back to the promised land. For it is written, even though the people of Israel are as the grain of the sand of the sea, at the end only a few of them will return back to the promised land. So an extermination has also been decided on the rest. Say, and justice will engulf them. Say, an extermination decided on by the sovereign Lord Yahuwah of armies will be carried out in the entire land. That is why crowds and crowds of people, or billions and billions of people, are waiting in the valley of decision to be exterminated. Yes, to be wiped out. That is what is written. Don't blame me. I'm just giving, don't blame the prophet, the messenger. I'm just passing the message around, to you that is paying attention. I'm passing the message of what is pointing it out to you so that you can take action while there is time, so that you can take action before this great day of Yahuwah arrive. And perhaps you can save yourself and be among the few chosen remnant that will survive. For crowds and crowds of people, yes, billions and billions of people are in the valley of this decision waiting to be exterminated at the appointed time. So what will the day of Yahuwah or Yahuwah's judgment look like? So the day of Yahuwah is the day of the judgment of extermination in all the land. The day of Yahuwah is the day of the judgment of extermination in all the land. That is the day that Zephaniah told us that is coming, and is hurrying, and is coming very quick. It's going to be a day of executing the judgment of God. That is the extermination that will be carried out in the entire land. So what will happen that day? Or what would that day be like? Notice what the prophet Jeremiah explained in Jeremiah chapter 25, verse 29 to 33. There it is written, "For look, I am bringing calamity first on the city or the people that bear my name. So should you go unpunished? So you will not go unpunished, for I am calling for a sword against all the inhabitants of the earth, declares Yahuwah of armies. Say, and you are to prophesy all these words to them and say to them, from on high Yahuwah will roar, and from his holy dwelling he will make his voice heard. So he will roar loudly against his abiding flesh, so shouting like those treading the winepress. So he will sing triumphantly against all the inhabitants of the earth. A noise will resound to the ends of the earth, for Yahuwah has a controversy with the nations. So he will personally pass judgment on all humans, and he will put the wicked to the sword, declares Yahuwah. So this is what Yahuwah of armies says. Say, look, a calamity is spreading from nation to nation, and a great tempest will be unleashed from the remotest part of the earth. And those slain by Yahuwah in that day will be from one end of the earth clear to the other end of the earth. So they will not be mourned, nor will they be gathered up or buried. So they will become like manure to the surface of the ground. So yes, that day will be a terrible day of judgment. It's going to be a terrible day of judgment. For Yahuwah said he's calling what? For a sword against all the inhabitants of the earth. And the sword is for what? Slaying, putting to death. So Yahuwah is going to bring death upon the inhabitants of the earth. He will execute his final judgment. That's why Joel said that millions and millions of people are in this valley of decision that is coming. They are waiting to be executed, to be exterminated at this final judgment that is coming. For Yahuwah said he will roar loudly against his abiding place. He said he has a controversy against the nations. Why? Because he has told them that he's going to take vengeance on behalf of his people Israel. For they scattered them among the nations and have divided up their lands. Because of this, he's going to do what? Go to war with all the nations. And he's going to make an extermination in all the nations. So those slain by Yahuwah will be so many, they will not even be buried. But they will become like manure to the ground. It will be a terrible day of judgment, the day of Yahuwah. Concerning that day, the day of extermination, the day of judgment, Jeremiah continued to say in the book of Jeremiah chapter 25 verse 34 to 38, there is written, say, well, you shepherds, and cry out. The shepherds are the leaders of these nations, your presidents, your kings, the presidents of these nations and their leaders. So, well, you shepherds, and cry out. So, wallow about, you majestic ones of the flock, because the time of your slaughter and your dispersion has come, and you will fall like a precious vessel. So the shepherds have no place to flee, and there is no escape for the majestic ones of the flock. So listen to the outcry of the shepherds and the wailing of the majestic ones of the flock. For Yahuwah is devastating their pasture, and the peaceful dwelling places have been made lifeless because of the burning anger of Yahuwah. So he has left his lair just like a young lion. For their land has become an object of horror because of the cruel sword and because of his burning anger. So the leaders and the kings of the nations will be very shocked. Yes, they will be shocked, and they will cry out by what Yahuwah will do to them, and by the power that Yahuwah will display among them. They will be in shock, and they will wallow about. They will cry out, because their flocks will be their flock will be dispersed. There will be no more. So this final judgment will be executed before Israel's 2,000 years punishment comes to an end. Yes, this judgment that is coming for the nations will be executed before Israel's final judgment, final 2,000 years punishment comes to its end. And those of you that are paying attention, you know when this punishment on Israel started, and you know when this punishment is going to end. But before this punishment ends for Israel, Yahuwah will go to war with the nations, and he will carry out this final judgment of extermination, because that is what he has foretold that will be carried out. So, in conclusion, Joel chapter 3 verse 14 to 16, there is written, crowds and crowds are in the valley of the sea of the decision, for the day of Yahuwah is near in the valley of decision. So the sun and the moon will become dark, and the stars will lose their brightness, And Yahuwah will roar out of Zion, out of Jerusalem he will raise his voice, and heaven and earth will rock. But Yahuwah will be a refuge for his people, a fortress for the people of Israel. So yes, the few remnants of the descendants of Israel who searched for Yahuwah their God will be salvaged from this final judgment. A few remnants of the descendants of Israel who search for Yahuwah our God are the ones that will be salvaged from this final judgment. The rest of the people will be among the crowds and crowds that will be exterminated on this final judgment. So you are hearing this so that you can be motivated to seek Yahuwah your God before it is too late, before his day gets here, before his day comes upon us. For Yahuwah is coming with his holy and powerful ones, the angels. The Bible, Yahushua the leader said that the angels are the reapers. They are the ones that will harvest those who are meant for extermination, and they will be burned up, while those chosen will be what gathered to inherit the kingdom of their Father. So you are hearing this so that you can do what you need to do before the great day of Yahuwah comes upon us. For millions and millions of people are in the valley of the decisions, waiting to be exterminated. Until I come to you next time, keep seeking for Yahuwah, keep asking for his mercy, keep begging that you be among those that he will preserve alive. So don't hate the messenger. Listen to the message. Until I come to you next time, remain blessed. Share with your family, share with your friends, share with those who will pay attention. At the end, it is those who paid attention and did what they need to do are the ones that will be preserved alive. The rest will be what? Exterminated, and they will become like manure to the ground. So peace be to you until I come to you next time.